how to harvest your herbs, dry them out, and turn them into something wonderful. Now, this is mint, and mint is very easy to distinguish from other plants. It has a square stem. So by looking at it, you could tell the difference between this and what might look like weeds in your garden. When harvesting it, simply just cut it in bunches, placing it together. I like to tie a ribbon around it. If I'm using mint, I have a certain color, and I will tie a yellow ribbon in just a nice simple knot, leaving a little bit of a tail to tie it onto just a simple coat hanger. And then I will tie it here. Now you can place stickers on here to tell you what you have if you choose to put more than one bunch on a hanger. To dry them, simply dry them in a cool, dark place. You don't want to dry these in direct sunlight, in a dehydrator, or in the oven. You want them to dry naturally. Keep your bunches loose so that they're not coming together. When they're moist like this and bunched together, you can get mold in them. So you want to just keep them loose, hang them here, and then in a cool, dry place. Once your herbs are dried, you can simply snip them off, and you can do a variety of things with them. You can use them in dried flower bunches. You can leave them just as they are, or you can get pretty magical with them. Now for me, one of the easiest things for me to do is take my dried herbs and create a beautiful incense with them. I use a mortar and pestle. The mortar and pestle works as the male and female energy. When using it, you create a circle. Standing up, you can feel the energy from Mother Earth coming up through your feet, up through your body, into your hands, and infusing the herbs with them. I'm using chamomile here, which is just simply the flowers, and the lavender, which you just saw. After it's been stemmed, it looks like this. Simply using your pestle and grinding them so you can get somewhat of a fine powder. Now as you can see, some of the flowers are still whole, which is fine. If you're choosing to make them much thinner, all you would have to do is run this through a sifter and then regrind it in your mortar and pestle. To store your incense, you want to use something that's airtight, and you want to label them. You can use plastic containers or glass, preferably if you can find small colored bottles with either a cork top or a screw top so that the sun will not damage your herbs or your incense. You can store those in there. When using your herbs as an incense, what you want to do is use it on a charcoal disc. Make sure that you wait until the charcoal disc has turned completely gray. There's saltpeter in there which causes it to self-ignite, and you don't want that scent mixed in with the beautiful herbs that you and Mother Earth have created. A small pinch on top of the charcoal disc will cause an array of smoke and fill your room with a beautiful scent. When it is burned, the smoke will permeate the air, and you will be able to smell this scent even when you come home later that evening if you've lit and done your morning ritual. Now, some of you might say, why go through all of this trouble to create an incense when you can buy a stick incense for 10 cents? Here's the thing. With these incense, they're what's called a dipped incense, and they are dipped in a lot of different chemicals. Now, they will burn throughout your whole ritual or your spell, but they're also used with saltpeter. Some of them have sulfur in them, which can tend to be banishing agents, and those you want to try and stay away from whenever using them in a ritual. With the natural incense and using your herbs that way, you can burn this in the morning. As the smoke permeates throughout the room, when you come home in the evening, you'll still be able to smell the scent, which to me is worth the little bit of trouble that we go through.
The summer solstice marks the high point of the year where the sun is at its height and we have the longest day and the shortest night. As the sun approaches the zenith of the heavens and the climax of his ascent, it also marks the beginning of his decline. The paradox that the peak also indicates the decline is also true of empires, orgasms, and our own bodies. The sun is constantly sacrificing himself so that life on earth may live, and will burn himself out in a few million years. I would like to share with you some of the solar myths that have come from ancient cultures that considered the sun to be the life bringer and was their main deity. From the Egyptians, the story goes that the sky goddess Nut, whose body forms the horizon, gives birth each morning to the sun god, who travels the sky from east to west. He comes in 3 disguises. In the morning, he appears as a scarab, the sacred beetle that is reborn from its own dung. In the afternoon, he comes as the falcon-headed god Ra, and in the evening in the shape of Aten, father of all gods. The annual Sundance ceremonies of the Plains Indians of North America give the message that affirms the power of suffering and sacrifice. If we no longer engage in sacrificing or making sacred, we will lose our sense of the center, the very energy of the world. The circular ceremonial lodge is called the Lodge of New Birth and reenacts the creation of the cosmos. The lodge doorway is at the east, where light comes in. From the south comes growth and youth. From the west comes ripeness, full fruit, the middle age of man. And the north is completion, old age leading to death, which again leads to new life. At the center of the lodge is the sacred tree, rooted in the womb of earth as mother and stretching up to the heavens. It is the axis mundi and the male generative principle. When during the sun dance, men in painful ceremony are actually tied to the tree of the center by the flesh of their body, or when women make offerings of pieces cut from their arms, sacrifice through suffering is accomplished so that the world and all beings may live and life may be renewed. The Aztec believe that the world has been created and destroyed 4 times. Each newly created world was named for the cause of its destruction. The first was Jaguar World, after Jaguar stole the sun and the world froze. Then there was Wind World, Rain World, and Water World, and each of these was destroyed by wind, rainfall, and flooding. Finally, the 5th world, Earthquake World, is where we live now. Remember Indonesia? Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, and the great jaguar were 2 of the most powerful Aztec gods. They separated the earth from the sky, created the people, and the food mountain to feed them. But when the gods tried to open Food Mountain, they could not, so Nanahuatl, a small, ugly god covered with sores, told the other gods to pull their own hearts from their chests and hurl them at the sacred mountain. This supreme sacrifice cracked open the food vault, and the gods looked at Nanahuatl and rewarded him by asking him to be the sun. All the gods agreed except for Water Woman. To appease her, she was required to water the earth to give the people enough food for each year. The Inca ceremony of the welcoming of the sun lasted for 8 days and was begun by the main Inca, seated on a special throne in the courtyard. Around were images of all the Inca gods under canopies of tropical feathers. Leading to the courtyard were 2 rows of the great nobles of the empire, all in splendid clothing, great capes hanging with pendants of gold and silver and feather crowns on their heads. As the first light of solstice day dawned, the Inca arose and commenced a chant, in honor of the sun. As the sun rose, he chanted somewhat louder, and all the nobles followed. Then, as the sun rose yet higher in the sky, the Inca returned from time to time to lead an increase in the volume of chanting. Later, as the sun declined, he correspondingly marked the stages of descent by softening the chant. Looking on throughout the day were the mummified bodies of the past Incas. All of them were present to be part of the material descent from the sun to the present Inca. Some were just grim bundles of skin-covered bones, but the more recent ones appeared almost alive, even with their eyelashes intact. All the bodies were dressed in royal robes of golden splendor, and they watched the great altar platform on which was a growing tree, again the axis of the world. Offerings were made in honor of the sun himself, and all day for 8 days meat was burnt to ashes and llamas were sacrificed. Then came the beautiful girls carrying large pots of chichi or beer and offering the drink to the sun and to the crowd. At sunset, the bodies of the past Incas were taken in procession back to their cells in the temple. All the gathered people wailed a lament for the setting of the bright sun. So at this summer solstice, I hope you will be able to frolic in Soul's rays and enjoy this peak of the year, because at the climax begins the decline, and after this turning point, the days once again become shorter.
The fifth chakra, also known as the throat chakra, is all about communication and personal will. Knowing when to talk, what to say, and saying the difficult things that you bury inside of you are all aspects of this area. Control issues are very often associated with this chakra, as we are capable of controlling both with our speech and with our silence. Chrysocolla is one of the finest stones for the throat. Being soft, it assists us in drawing out the voice when we are shy or reluctant to speak, or when we need to speak in front of a group. I often used chrysocolla when I first began to give lectures on stones and healing, as I had little confidence in what I was doing. Wearing it as a pendant around the throat helps the energy to work for us throughout the day. Turquoise is known by the Native Americans as the protection stone, as they believed that it shielded them from danger. It blends the energy of the sky and the energy of the earth to align our chakras and to help us stay connected to spirit and stay grounded at the same time. It also assists with maladies of the lungs and throat. Aquamarine is known as the courage stone, as it gives us the motivation to say things that are difficult to talk about. This stone helps us to speak with integrity and honesty, while at the same time acting with compassion. It promotes harmony between the body, mind, and spirit to keep us aligned with our higher selves. It also helps us to rein in our judgments and practice tolerance. Sodalite is a great stone for performers, singers, actors, and public speakers. I have found that sodalite opens the throat and works in conjunction with the diaphragm to promote creative and forceful speech. It aids us in self-esteem so that we can speak with clarity and assuredness while at the same time building relationships and community with others. The last stone I want to talk about is kyanite. This stone is striated with white markings, which stimulates psychic awareness and communication. It's a wonderful stone to use in meditation, as it helps in accessing spiritual guidance as well as recalling dreams. Kyanite is a stone that will not accumulate or retain negativity, so it does not need clearing or cleansing. I like to use kyanite for opening sinuses and working on releasing blockages in the face and jaw. You can carry stones in your pocket, wear them around your neck, sleep with them next to you or under your pillow, or lie down and place them on you while you meditate. Allow the vibration of each stone to permeate your energy system, while at the same time gaining the awareness that the stone has to offer. Speech and communication are so important to us in relationships of all sorts. It's nice to know that Mother Nature has provided us with the tools to sustain us while we hone our conversational and listening skills.
In this astrology segment, I would like to talk about the effect of the moon in the different signs. And the moon is one of the fastest moving bodies, in fact, the fastest moving body, and it changes signs every 2 to 2.5 days. And each time it changes signs, it's almost as if there's another lens that we view our life through. The first place we'll start is with the moon in Aries. Aries is the first sign. It's a very vital, very dynamic sign, and is ruled by Mars. When we have the moon in Aries, people tend to be a bit more aggressive, a bit more assertive than they normally are. Aries is also the sign of the warrior. So there may be, how could I say it, a little bit more testosterone, a bit more aggressiveness that comes out with people. The moon in Aries is a great time period to start new projects, especially projects which require a lot of dynamic energy, a lot of forceful type energy. Also, people are, how can I say it, less understanding, less compassionate with the moon in Aries. The moon is in Taurus. People are more grounded and more centered and a bit more stubborn. They're more concerned about getting a good value for their money and their investments, and a little bit more content to take things easy, to spend time walking in the woods, enjoying a nice sunset, or spending time on long-range projects. They also look for the best when the moon is in Taurus. When the moon is in Gemini, there's a big concentration on communication, whether it be telephone calls, emails, letters. People tend to talk a little bit more when the moon is in Gemini. With the moon in Gemini, it's a great time period for starting a writing project or a teaching project. A lot of communication. People tend to be a little bit scattered with the moon in Gemini. But again, it focuses on learning and on mental endeavors. When the moon is in Cancer, there's a focus on the home. There's a focus on nurturing, focus on gardening, focus on cooking. Again, it's a good time period for starting all of those projects, and people tend to be a bit more, I'd want to say emotionally sensitive, but more nurturing with the moon in Cancer. The moon in Leo is a time for drama with a capital D. Moon in Leo likes to play, so people are going to be in more of a mood for social pursuits, for dressing up. You could have some very, what I would want to call, regal attitudes. The kings and queens come out with the moon in Leo. But it's a time for fun. Moon in Leo is very, very much of a fun time, and it's a recreational time. When the moon changes into Sirius, Virgo, there's a lot of nitpicking that goes on. People are more concerned with exactness with things, details. There also is a big concern with health improvement and with hygiene with the moon in Virgo. Moon in Virgo is also service to others. So this is a good time period if you're trying to get people to do something for you, to approach them with that. Moon in Virgo is a very grounded time period, and after the fun times of the moon in Leo, people tend to get back to business with the moon in Virgo. Moon in Libra is a time period where people very often change their mind or have a harder time than normal making up their mind. The moon in Libra, there's a big concentration on creative projects. There's a focus on beauty, whether it's beauty of the home or whether it's artistic pursuits. Bigger focus on relationship matters, and a big focus on what's fair, what's not fair. When the moon moves into sexy Scorpio, there's I'd want to say perhaps a little bit of a dark element that comes out. People's dark side come to the fore. Sometimes there can be a bit more, I'd want to say, naughty behavior, criminal behavior, sexy behavior. Usually I'd want to say the libidos tend to be a little bit higher with that moon in sexy Scorpio. However, it's also a time period where you need to watch out for people being underhanded, whether you're a little bit more aware of it or whether they do it a little bit more with the moon in Scorpio. It's also a great time period to start a long distance trip, a bit more interested in death. The moon in Sagittarius is a very high-minded time period. And when the moon moves into Sagittarius, there's a concern with higher education and spirituality. It's also a great time period to start a long-distance trip or a long-distance journey. The moon in Sagittarius is a very high-minded time period, and I'd want to say issues of religion are a little bit more in the fore during that time period. Moon in Capricorn is a very grounded time. Again, it's a time period where people are a little bit more stubborn than they normally are, more concerned with the nuts and bolts of life. During the moon in Capricorn, there's more of a traditional approach to life, interest in history and in antiques, and I'd want to say old styles as opposed to newer styles. When the moon moves into Aquarius, it's time for the inner hippie to come out. People's behavior tends to be a little bit more wild. They're interested in new things, new inventions, and there's a bit of a radical element that comes to the fore. The moon in Aquarius can be a very humanitarian time, but again, people are taking a new approach or a new direction with things. Finally, we come to the moon in Pisces. The moon in Pisces can be very spacey. The moon in Pisces, life takes on a dreamlike attitude. People are a bit more prone to escapism, whether it be alcohol, drugs, or other methods of escapism. They may not be as clear as you would expect, as you would want them to be. With the moon in Pisces, things tend to have a little bit of a fog or a spaciness to them. So when you're taking into account your day-to-day activities, it's very good to know where the moon is, so you know the kind of attitude or overlay that life itself is going to have, and it helps you prepare or to know where to focus your energies a bit more during each of the 2 to 2.5 day moon times.
Six can bring confidence to those under its influence. It can supply the need of service to others. It can bring responsibility and adjustment. 6 settles disputes, deals with home and family, as well as health and appearances. 6 can place you in a position of leadership. 6 is good for making friends, business contacts, and just plain looking good. Flexibility is key in not always looking for perfection, as is often the case under 6's spell. The downside of 6 is in an inability to accept things as they are. Relationships may suffer from too many arguments. Perfectionism in oneself, or finding such in others, can lead to unhealthy obsessions. Confidence may breed egotism and difficulties dealing with others. 6s may be too fussy in what things look like. Appearances may be deceiving, is the lesson to be learned here. Health and domestic issues arise under 6's influence, and a domineering attitude is frequently the cause. In Key 6, the superconscious, the angel, sheds influence on self-consciousness, the man, and subconsciousness, the woman. Subconsciousness is always amenable to suggestion of any kind, unless rightly directed by self-consciousness. Illusions make their appearance as the serpent on the tree. It is not that a life of sensation is itself evil, but that all that humans know of sensations, that which exerts such a pull on the individual, particularly the subconscious, consists of a pair of opposites, good and evil. In listening to the serpent, the pair found themselves in trouble, whereas in listening to the angel, that is, spirit, they are guided correctly. The pair are nude not only because they have no shame and conceal nothing from each other, so too, in correct relation to spirit, do they have no concealments. The pair are also equal so that they leave each other free to carry out their separate types of activity. Subconscious is the connective link between self and superconsciousness. And here is love before gross desire. Decision with all options available. It is the card of the mystery of the covenant and Sabbath in a very high sense. The night watch in summer is everyone's favorite sky searching time. The warm nights and late setting sun are conducive to staying up and checking out the stars. The direction straight south at 9 p.m. is particularly rich around summer solstice and beyond in its wealth of constellations. A host of famous characters, from heroes like Hercules to creatures like the scorpion, bejeweled with famous celestial components from horizon to zenith, are on display, and too numerous to go into here. But perhaps the most interesting, at least from a galactic geography point of view, is Sagittarius, hugging closer to the horizon. Usually associated with its calendar date later in the year, Sagittarius is right here in front of us in the early summer evening in a southerly direction. And interesting because right off the spout of this teapot-shaped constellation is the galactic center. Stare straight off its pointing way, and you are looking at the very hub of the wheel that makes up the Milky Way.